Hey everyone, thanks for stopping in and watching our ongoing coverage with Elsa. Now, Hurricane Elsa, as of the 8 p.m. update. I'm Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. I'm going to take you through these next couple of hours and I keep you updated on the very latest. And of course, we'll continue our ongoing coverage tomorrow with meteorologist Mike Linden, as well as meteorologist Jamie Martin as well. And we, of course, I have a lot to get to because now that we have seen the Hurricane Center upgrade this to a hurricane, that changes the game a little bit, but more so in the name than in the impacts, because the impacts are still expected to be pretty significant as we head into the next couple of hours and into tomorrow as well. And of course, we'll see how that all plays out. It looks like the screen mirror that we're trying to use to show you the app is not currently working. I'm going to try and get that to work, or actually I see it, Matt, on my end. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at the app first, and then we'll get into some of these other things. So one of the very first things that you'll notice here that jumps right out is the center that we now see clearly on the radar with Elsa. So there is definitely a very ragged and small eye that has popped up here in the last couple of images. As I zoom way in here, you can see it. It's pretty disorganized. Again, this is not definitely what we would call a organized hurricane, but nonetheless, the hurricane hunters are in the inside Elsa yet again with more data indicating that the winds have reached that threshold at 75 miles an hour. And some of those feeder bands are coming on shore in parts of southwest Florida that are producing up to 3 inches of rain an hour. We got an update from the Weather Prediction Center saying that, watch out for some of the flash flooding because this is going to be some pretty intense weather. So let me switch over to WSI, Matt, and we'll take a look at that because I want to get a much closer look at the eye itself. We'll do a little bit of investigating here together and to do some calculations and some measurements. So you see we've got my the 5 radar scans up. I'm going to zoom way into the eye itself, and then we're going to take some measurements here. So I measured this before we came on. This is a small center of circulation, a small area that we could generally call an eye. But again, this is ragged, so this is not perfect. I'm going to try and get that close. So that roughly says about 20 miles across. And let me take that off. And then you'll see that it's roughly in the same vicinity, about 17 or 18 miles from north to south. So again, the presentation here is definitely not what we would call a well-organized system. And of course, that's all well and good. We don't definitely want anything worse than what we've got, which is a Cat 1. But you can see here, just as I outline it here, just how, just disproportionate this is. And of course I can't even draw that very well with our illustrator there, but that that kind of elliptical ragged presentation of the center of circulation, or what would be considered the eye itself. So let me take that off, and then let's go down a little bit and take a look at some of these feeder bands. So this is the one that the the Weather Prediction Center says is capable, and I didn't click on it at the right rate there, but this particular rate indicating about 1.33 inches an hour, but some of the returns in some of these feeder bands have been as high as 3 inches an hour potentially, and these are going to be rotating onshore. So the other risk here, besides the fact that we've got these winds, are going to be these onshore rain bands, feeder bands, that will have that potential to significantly put down some fair amount of weather here in a short period of time. So as we take a look at that, let me grab another utensil here and see if I can kind of illustrate that. So again, everything's going to be kind of rotating onshore like this. And of course I grabbed the wrong tool, but everything will be rotating from the south to the north, and some of those bands again will be pretty significant as we head through the next couple of hours. And that's why that flash flood, there is a flash flood watch, or an aerial flood watch I should say, that is up for the next several hours and even into tomorrow. Some of those bands have been particularly persistent across parts of the south central part of the the southwestern part of Florida, I should say, not south central. The central part of the state, there's definitely been some of these bands that have been producing 1 to 2 inches of rain an hour as well. Let's take a quick little query on this one, and we'll see what this is. This is probably going to be about 1/2 of an inch. Yeah, not that reflectivity, not super high. But the thing that's misleading about some of these rain returns that are saying 1/4 of an inch an hour is that these feeder bands take several hours to rotate over a particular region. So it can take 2 to 3 hours, and when that can accumulate to an inch of rainfall pretty quickly, and that's where the concern comes in with some of these flooding risks. So one of the other major features that was new for tonight, again, is this forward motion that's starting to pick up a bit. And here, let me just show you this real quick, because again, our center, or our eye, if you will, again, it is not circular. So in a perfect world, in a well-defined tropical cyclone, we would see what would be more like a donut or a tire, was my illustration earlier in the day. So the fact that we see kind of this squashed donut, if you will, or squashed tire, indicates some of that drier air that's punching in on the south side of the center. So that's what's forcing some of that dynamic there in that center to be less organized or less circular, because we're getting some of that dry air and training in on the south side of the center. So that will probably not change too much. It's also, again, interacting with Florida. It's been interacting with Florida for hours. And even though the sea surface temperatures there are very warm, 85 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, there's a couple of things that are going against it. Again, some of that dry air entraining or kind of filtering into the center core, and some of that friction with the interaction with the state of Florida, which again will likely limit its ability to get much stronger. But again, incidental, whether we're talking about a Cat 1 or a strong tropical storm, the hazards here will stay as is. So the Hurricane Center was preemptive today when they upgraded the hurricane watch to a hurricane warning, anticipating that we would get some reorganization here. You can also see in that last frame from this radar reflectivity that some of that circular nature is really starting to expand a bit. So that could be, some signs of something trying to go on here, where sometimes these things often are like chameleons. They shed their skin, so to speak, and come out a stronger, in this case, a stronger cyclone. So we could see this trying to maybe get a little, stronger. We could be in a recycle here in the center and that eye. So we'll see what the hurricane official update from the hurricane hunters that are currently inside of it. But let me go a little closer into this reflectivity, because that is some really heavy duty rain right there. So all of that is offshore, but some of that is going to rotate up into that Cedar Key area, I think, by dawn, the pre-dawn hours tomorrow. So let me see if I can get a return here. And that's still saying 1 1/3, and I know that's not right. I know that it's much higher than that. So I'm trying to get it while it's looping, which is also difficult. So let me stop it. Let's see if we can do that, and I can get a better reading. But I know sometimes, that, again, this is offshore. Let me do one quick thing here. We'll see if I get a number. No, it's still going to say 1 1/3. When I know it's more than that. So I know that some of this is 2 to 3 inches of rain an hour. So some of that's going to filter over into the northern part of the Big Bend area and into the central part of the Big Bend area as we get into the morning hours tomorrow. And again, that will be the concern. Not only will you have this, but you're also going to have the wind. So current winds in this area have been, again, not bad, but Sarasota, look at that. It has a sustained wind of 35 miles an hour. So that's right on the cusp of a tropical storm. The rest of the state, pretty nominal, 10, 15 mile per hour sustained winds. Remember, with a gust, you're getting another 7 or 8, 9 degrees on there. So a factor of 7 to 8, 9 miles per hour. So gusting probably in the neighborhood of 20 in most of these areas. But again, that's going to uptick more as we get into tomorrow. One of the other added benefits, if you will, of Elsa is its relatively small size. So even though we're still talking about a hurricane, in terms of the scope of impact, it's going to be a relatively narrow area of Florida when it comes on shore. So that will aid in the limiting some of the the damage that we're going to be that these folks are going to be dealing with once it comes on shore, because this is not a massive hurricane. This is not 300 to 400 miles across. Hurricane Floyd hit the east coast of Florida about 15 or 20 years ago. I don't remember the exact timing, but I was working in local TV at the time, and it was massive. It was about 400 miles in circumference. So this is a much smaller in circumference storm, but again, in that core wind field, we still are going to have those winds at 75 miles an hour. So I'm going to show you the wind radar product in just a minute, but I also wanted to let you know that we still have got that risk for tornadoes tonight as well. That will be an ongoing threat into tomorrow. So we did have some tornado warnings earlier in the evening, late afternoon. There were a couple of warnings. Still keeping an eye on that. We haven't had any tornado warnings. Let me just double check recently, but there has certainly been the potential there. Let me turn those on real quick. So there has been the potential there for some of these rotating feeder bands to again create some rotation and possibly some spin in the atmosphere that would create, a brief spin up or a brief tornado. So again, on satellite imagery, this is not a classic system. This is not something where we're saying, wow, this is incredibly organized. That's not to downfall or downplay the scope of this, but it is to give you some reassurances that on satellite presentation and on radar presentation, this is not something that is going to go down in the books as one of the more better organized hurricanes of 2021, I would venture to say. However, there are a couple of things here that I do see that you've seen some featuring that I look for in developing cyclones, and that is this outflow you see here. So this is the blow off, the thunderstorms, the really high ones that are blowing off and create this exhaust. It's like an exhaust that comes out of an engine. So you can see some of that feathering over the Bahamas and some of that outflow that's coming out over here several hundred miles off in the Atlantic, some of that outflow coming in here as well. But let's take let me take a little quick, see if we can do a quick measurement on this since we were talking about size. So again, rudimentary. This is not a scientific fact, and there is data on how big this is, but roughly, we're looking at 100 miles across and a roughly 200 miles, or and again, rudimentary stuff here. Some of this is not the center, but the cyclone itself, but give or take 150, 175 miles. So again, relatively smaller in size, limiting again the force that we'll have. But unfortunately, as we've been talking about all day today, so much of the weather is stacked on the right, is stacked on the right side, or the northeastern side of the quadrant. So that will be the concern that as we head into tonight. And there you can see in that last frame there, a little burst, that real deep red there, that's just north of the word Tampa, indicating some of the efforts from Elsa to try and re-strengthen tonight and into these next couple of hours. So here's the official path from the Hurricane Center. Pressure down to 996. It was 999 at 6 o'clock this evening. So a little bit of a drop, and that's why it was just enough for the Hurricane Center to upgrade it to the hurricane strength. The movement, though, has picked up a bit. Now north at 14. That puts the center about 100 miles southwest of Tampa. So on that trajectory, if you just do some rough math there, that's roughly 6 hours, 7 hours, from Tampa. But the thinking is that it's going to come in north of Tampa and come in near the Cedar Key area. And then as we head into tomorrow, it's going to move pretty fast. So if you start out with some pretty rough weather in this area of Florida, I don't think this is going to be an all-day event. It'll be an early morning event. Some of this is going to happen while you're sleeping tonight, and then as you wake up, you're going to have some of these squalls and some of these feeder bands that we've seen. Some from the video, from some of the video that we've seen out of the Keys. Oh, by the way, Matt, let me see if you have that, if you can get to it quickly. Let's take a look at some of that video out of the Keys and Key West in particular from this morning. And I do think Elsa's going to, Okay, I do think Elsa's going to surprise some people, because I think it's going to, bring in some of these higher squalls. We've seen some flooding. We saw some extensive flooding in Jamaica, and also in parts of the Caribbean islands earlier this weekend. So I think it's going to catch some people off guard tomorrow. Tropical storms, even or Category 1 hurricanes, have a tendency to surprise people in the fast nature of the weather changing from relatively calm to relatively squally and pretty intense squalls in a short period of time. So again, folks living here that are in the Big Bend area, I know you know this. I know you've been through multiple hurricanes, and you are used to this. You know the drill. But there's always something that sticks out in a landfalling tropical system that always surprises somebody. So I always try and remind people that even when you're talking about these Category 1s, there's going to, whether it's the level of power outages or it's the level of flooding, it's still going to be an issue. So I think we have that video that we can show you out of Key West, some of the squally weather that was developing down there, and the peak wind gust, I believe, out of the Key West National Weather Service was around 59 miles an hour at the peak of their storm. So the winds, of course, gusting higher than the sustained wind, and of course Elsa did not move directly over Key West. It moved to its west, but again, from the video you can see some pretty nasty weather, and arguably this would be something you would see in a severe thunderstorm. You would get this kind of a wind in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 miles an hour. But I always also like to remind people that when you get a severe thunderstorm, those only last for 15 minutes, maybe 20 or 30 minutes if you've got a really big, complex system over you. But hurricanes and tropical storms last for hours, and so that's where the power outages come into play. There were some isolated power outages, by the way, in the Keys earlier in the day today, but of course things are looking better. And of course she's walking around her house, so that's why that video is so shaky. But there was some flooding in Duval County and Monroe County as well from Elsa. So thanks for adding that in there, Matt, on the fly. And of course, I'm sure we'll see plenty of videos similar to that as we get into tomorrow. Back to the forecast path again. By tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at Elsa right on the Florida-Georgia line and headed up into South Carolina by early Thursday afternoon, and then headed into parts of North Carolina after that. And I can see that my timestamps are wrong there, so I apologize. The Thursday at 2 a.m. should be before the Thursday at 2 p.m. Not sure how that got mixed up, but I'll get that straight for our next update. But anyway, by Friday, still looking at some type of peripheral impacts, maybe over Nantucket, over in parts off the coast of New York. We'll have to see those kinds of impacts, and that of course will be impacting multiple millions of people in large metro areas. We'll see what's left of Elsa, but the Hurricane Center still has it as a tropical storm on Friday with winds at 45. So that's definitely going to slow folks down on a Friday afternoon trying to get a weekend started. So this, again, a multi-day weather event that is not going to just end tomorrow once it makes landfall. Storm surge from Bonita Springs up to Horseshoe Beach, anywhere from 3 to 5 feet. Storm surge warning is, of course, near Cedar Key and right up into the Bend, where we're anticipating, again, that surge of 3 to 5. But you have to remember that the surge comes in before the hurricane. So the waters have already started to rise in this area. Of course, it's dark out right now, so it's not as easy to see a storm surge come in with the rising water. And I know that there were folks that were, I have very good friends that are in the Tampa area, in the St. Pete Beach area, that of course boarded up and have also put the sandbags around their entire perimeter of their homes. That actually does a lot to help with the flooding. So I know a lot of folks in this area of the country of Florida have taken their precautions and have done what they could. So hopefully we won't hear a lot of the flooding reports that we heard from Ada last year. This is a very similar scenario in terms of where it's coming in. The wind field also similar, lopsided, but again, look at this kidney bean, if you will, that is what Elsa has become. And again, a very heavy laden eastern packed storm. Most of the tropical storm force winds, again, on the east. There's just this big void here on the west side. And then the tropical storm force winds, again, kind of kidney bean shape, that entraining of that dry air, just punching in the center of that circle, or collapsing the organization of that cyclone as we get into tonight. So this is showing at 9 p.m. And of course, we know this is already a hurricane. So this product was updated at 5 p.m. from the National Hurricane Hurricane Center. This will, at 11, we'll have the red circle there for the hurricane force winds, just in case you're wondering why those aren't on there. But it pops on here in just a second. But this still does a really good job indicating how those winds are going to impact. So headed through the overnight, there's the red disc, which would indicate those winds at 74 miles an hour or greater, hugging the coast of parts of Hillsborough County and moving up into, again, eventually the Crystal River area, and still holding on as a hurricane through the pre-dawn hours. And we do think, even though that wind field's going to kind of shrink to a really small area, it looks like, again, the Cedar Key would be the entry point of Hurricane Elsa at that point, but somewhere around 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Again, that's kind of a little bit of guesswork, but that's what we're thinking right now. And as we pull this back out, you'll see that it quickly moves up into Georgia by tomorrow night. So this will not, again, be a long player for Florida. So Florida already, but sections of Florida have been dealing with Elsa most of the day today. A large majority of the state has not dealt with Elsa. There's going to be the worst of it tomorrow, and then it quickly moves up into Georgia, maintaining that wind, of that tropical storm strength as it rakes up the coast of South Carolina, up into North Carolina, and then eventually up into, perhaps the northeastern part of the country. So we'll have to see if that all plays out as we get into the second half of this work week, but certainly going to be an interesting week nonetheless for folks that have to deal with Elsa. Next product that I've got in here is the estimated time of arrival of winds. This is also a product that the Hurricane Center puts out every 6 hours, so some of this is a little dated because it came out at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We'll get a brand new batch of data coming up at 11 p.m. But it's been not changing all that much, so you can kind of see as we head through the overnight, we're expecting the worst of those winds to start to roll into central western Florida, anywhere from Fort Myers up to Tampa, and then starting to take that turn towards the northeast. So Elsa not expected to turn northeast or back to the right until tomorrow morning. So kind of paralleling the state as we head through the overnight hours tonight. We should start to see that turn towards the northeast by early tomorrow, and then headed up into that general trajectory up into the northeastern part of the country, of course, impacting Georgia and the Carolinas first before it gets up into the northern parts of the state. So states. So we'll see how that it winds up coming to fruition. But most of the modeling has been really consistent today, and I've got all the latest info in here. So here's a look at these are gusts. So I showed you live winds just a couple of minutes ago. This is a model product that estimates what the wind gusts are. So this is a little bit overdone because we don't have a 46 mile per hour gust currently in Bradenton or Fort Myers, but it's been pretty good in some of its the 29 mile per hour gust in Tampa, a little high, but it's not that far off. And I do buy some of these gusts around 40 to 50 miles an hour. I absolutely think we're going to get there. We already have a hurricane, so I do think that we will easily gust to high tropical storm. And, we're going to see some of those sustained winds of hurricane force and that very small eye as it comes on shore early tomorrow morning. And then as we head into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, moving up through Waycross, Savannah, then up into Charleston and Hilton Head, 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts, certainly I think is very reasonable guesstimation. And then as we head into Friday, that's going to spill over into North Carolina and Virginia. Still, those gusts, I think, are going to, Raleigh, that might be a little high for 54 for you by Thursday. We'll see. We'll see what you get. But I do think that there is going to be a little bit more in terms of power outages as we head into tomorrow and into Thursday and Friday. So that will be the interesting scenario. So the storm surge, as I mentioned, already has begun its process of pulling water towards the state of Florida. So 1 to 3 across the southwestern part of the state, where that's pretty much already done with because Elsa is north of you, but we're still dealing with the surge for sure in parts of Port Charlotte, Tampa, Spring Hill, Cedar Key. Absolutely, as we head through tonight, that surge will still be in play. And someone asked, and the other live updated, and I didn't see it until we had stopped the stream. He was asking, is that estimate still on target with a hurricane? And it is. So this estimate was from the Hurricane Center when this was a strong tropical storm, but the surge impacts still in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 feet. And he was asking for Captiva, which is in Southwest Florida near Fort Myers area. So that the 3 to 5 foot surge absolutely on target. Whether this was a strong tropical storm or a hurricane. So the HUR high resolution model, this has been doing a pretty bang up job. I've been happy with its results with this cyclone. So showing those heavy bands again that have the potential rain rates of 2 to 3 inches an hour. I'll scrub this and we'll kind of take our time going through this. And some of these bands, if you look up over on the east side, even Melbourne, Florida, down into parts of Martin County, St. Lucie County, Indian River County, going to see some of the squalls. Orlando into Lake County over to Sumter, all of that's going to kind of fill in on the outer gyra or the outer circulation of Elsa as it pulls north. So the blue path you see there is the official path from the National Hurricane Center. The line is the center of the forecast path, but again, try not to pay too much to that. I want to take a look at the rain, but you still see, even as we head into these overnight hours, there's going to be several batches of these tropical downpours that I do think are going to create this flooding problem and that flash flood risk that we could see as we head through the early morning hours. And then as we get right into that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock window, there's that magenta you see just south of the word Cedar Key, that magenta and purple, that's where the winds are going to be at that 75 mile per hour threshold. But it's a very narrow, small area, thankfully, but that's not great news for the folks in Cedar Key who have to deal with this. But at least, again, we're not talking about widespread impacts from those hurricane force winds, but there will be a decent amount of, squalls, feeder bands, rain bands, whatever you want to call them. They're all kind of the same vernacular, but they all produce those wind gusts, 50, 60 miles an hour. And those tropical downpours, they are not like a summer storm. They are much more powerful. They are much more potent and really can significantly bring down rains in a short period of time. If you've never been in a tropical system, it's hard to explain what it is, but if you live in Florida, you live in a hurricane-prone state, you know what I'm talking about, because we got one here in Orlando today. My girls and I were trying to move some of our lawn furniture in, and one of those tropical downpours came in, and it just comes in like a sheet of rain, and it comes in very fast, very quickly, leaves very quickly, but puts in, our street was flooded for about 20 minutes or so while some of that runoff was working through. So it was a fast mover, and that's what we can expect with Elsa. This is going to be a fast moving cyclone as it pulls north, and then after that we'll see how it impacts the northeastern part of the country. Let's see what we have else in here. Oh yeah, so our QPF. So this estimates the rain between now and 3 days from now. So remember, parts of Tampa and the western parts of Florida have had several days of rain. So cumulatively, some of these estimates are 5 to 7. Maybe more in the 5-inch rain. I think is 5-inch threshold. I think is probably where we'll shake out when we're done with this. But certainly possible. We could see some of those returns really ping in the neighborhood of 5 to 5.5 inches of rain, 3 to 5 up in the northern part of the state, and then 1 to 3 as we get into the Carolinas. But that number, don't let that fool you, because that's going to change as we get into further in time. So I do think some of these areas in the Carolinas really could see some of those numbers in the 3 to 5 inch range as well. A quick look at the sea surface temperatures to let you know that the environment there still ripe, ready to roll with a developing system with 84 degrees Fahrenheit, pretty much anywhere there on that shelf that straddles the western coastline of Florida. And that's ample energy, but again, one of our benefits to us is the fact that we're dealing with some of that shear that's coming in from the western states, from the western part of the Gulf of Mexico rather, that is helping to limit the activity. So I'm going to take this back to the live radar again real quick. We'll take a look at that center, and the center is actually looking a little more circular there in those last couple of images. But again, a big jump out here is the fact that those storms don't wrap around. So see how we have all this displaced. Here's our center right here, and then all of these heavy tropical bands are well to the east of the center. If we saw those tighter in here, you know, we'd have much more concern of this being a much more well-organized, defined system. But all of this is, again, displaced north and east of what the center of circulation is. That doesn't minimize that this is a hurricane, because it is. It is a hurricane. We have a closed low, closed tropical low, ragged in presentation, but nonetheless, in this core field up in here is where those winds, probably right in here, is where we're getting those 75-mile-per-hour winds. So that's going to just get very, very close to Tampa. I think that Tampa's going to skirt most of that hurricane wind. I think you're going to be high in those tropical storm force winds. Hopefully it'll stay north of you, but again, it'll be the Cedar Key area up in here. And even if, let me just pull this out. Even if it goes, let me grab the... I'll grab the ruler. So even if it's forecast to stay to the north over the next couple of hours, and then eventually it's going to do one of these and go like this. A cold front's going to help. Whoops, wait a minute. Oh, well, let me do it. Eventually, I can grab another little tool. Hang on. And it's going to hook this way. So not sharp like that, not a sharp right turn like that, but generally speaking towards Florida through the overnight hours. So that center is going to start to pull and push all that water up towards Cedar Keys. So that's why we think the surge there is going to be at its highest. And because of the topography or the shape of the state of Florida, we think that area will indeed have the worst storm surge than any of the coastal parts of Western Florida. It'll be in that Cedar Key area, which is again extremely vulnerable to flooding because of the topography of Florida, because of the shallow ocean shelf. The Gulf is very shallow there, and it allows it to push more water into those areas and over the banks and flood these areas. So that will be the concern as we head into these next couple of hours. All right, let me take a quick look at YouTube. Jim Bailey's in the house. Jim, thanks for watching. Let's see. Skellius Gaming is asking me what other radars that we are using. So we're using all NOAA products. All of the radar sites that we use are the same sites that you can get in the app. All of our per stations, there's about 280, I think, stations, or there may be more than that. I apologize, but I think it's in that range. 280 weather NOAA radar sites across the country. So we use all of that data. The system that I'm using is called WSI, which is a software program that broadcasting companies use to graphically show the weather. So you'll see this stuff in local affiliates. The network affiliates also use this type of software. There's several national companies out there. This just happens to be the one that we use. And so the radar that we're using is NOAA data, and it's the same data that you would get inside the app. It's just different software. Let's see. So Valora said she had no rain, but it just started to rain in her area. Let's see. Mr. Marley said he had 3 minutes of rain. I don't know where he is, and he said that was it. BG Tech is asking, is it Cat 1? Yes, it is. Winds are 75. And Penny's saying hello. Hey, Penny, I know you're a loyal watcher, so thank you so much for watching. And let's take a quick look over at Facebook, and then we will stop this one for the evening and have another update for you just right before 11 o'clock. We'll get our next info, so we'll have an update for you right around then. All right, let's see. Andrew, I'm not sure how to say your last name, but on Facebook he is saying Demarest is saying he's going to have a hurricane party. A lot of people in Florida have those. A lot of people in hurricane-prone states have those. When you're going to be long hours without any power, you sometimes you got to pass the time, and oftentimes that's either playing music or trying to relax when you're sitting in the heat with no power. By the way, I don't think we're going to get a bunch of power outages from this. Oh, Shauna is joining us from Cedar Key. Hope you're doing good, Shauna. You're ready. You've got your supplies, because I do think of any of the places that have a chance of being without power, it is going to be Cedar Key for at least a bit of time. Then we got Randall in West Palm Beach. Hey, that's my birthplace. Loved growing up there. It was a beautiful part of the state. Let's see. Bradenton, Florida in the house. Oh, Oh, my friend Julie Texture joining me. Oh, that's awesome. So anyways, you guys, I think that's going to do it for now because we're going to get some new info here in the next hour and a half. So I'll make sure that we join you back at 11 for the latest. So again, reminder that we will continue the coverage. We always want to ramp up our coverage, so you probably see a lot of this on social media on our pages. You don't probably see a lot of other content right now other than Elsa. We are aware that there has been severe weather in the northeastern part of the state, as well as the U.S. rather, and there's been some severe weather in the northern part of the United States. I will cover all of that in the fast forecast tomorrow morning. Right now, we're trying to focus in on the most important weather for at least right now, which is Elsa. That will change here in another day or two when we'll refocus back towards some other weather hazard. But for right now, we are focused on Elsa because that's the largest threat to the largest amount of people, and that's how we try and prioritize our coverage. But do want to let you know that we're still watching the severe weather that's been ongoing in parts of, some parts of the Northeast. There's been some severe thunderstorms there, and there's also been some damage up there, but no tornadoes that I'm aware of, but they have had some severe storm damage. But nonetheless, let you know we're watching that. We'll have an update with the fast forecast in the morning, and of course the ongoing coverage continues tomorrow morning early. Mike Linden will be in here with Damian McFarlane, I think around 6 a.m. to bring you into the landfall. I may pop in and do some coverage with them. I'm not sure, but I'll be back in the afternoon tomorrow for sure. But again, I will see you before that. I'll see you here in a couple hours with the latest from the Hurricane Center that will carry us through the overnight. All right, that'll do it for now, you guys. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and we appreciate all of the kind words that everyone has to say to our team, and we will see you here in just a little bit. Stay safe.